All right. So we today, children, we will be doing the atomic orbitals. Okay, and we have already done, in fact, but in this diagram, I have tried to explain clearly how the atomic orbitals are formed. Yesterday, when I was trying to explain, and since there is no one-to-one interaction like we have it in the classroom, here I thought that it would be nice if I could draw the diagrams and show you, but while the class is going on, it takes a lot of time to do all these diagrams. So I did it separately, and then I have these pictures of what I did. So if you can see, the first point that is dealing here are the shells. So atomic orbitals in general, this is not belonging to any one particular atom, but in general, what are the shells, subshells, and what happens to the subdivisions and all, that part we have tried to explain here. So you can see in this case, the first line that is saying is the shell. So this is the shell number actually. So this is the first shell, all right. This is the second shell, then third shell, fourth shell. So you have these shells which are there. Now, what is the composition of these shells? Not composition exactly, how many more energy levels are there in each of these shells. That I have tried to explain with this second line, that is the subshells present. Now, if you see in the subshells, you will find that S I have shown with a light green color that I have on my iPad. So that's the same color I have used. So you see, beginning with the first shell, all the shells have an S. So you have a 1S, you will have a 2S. So you have 1S, you have 2S, you have 3S, 4S. So you see all the S are there and they are the first ones. Each S subshell that is there is spherical in shape and it is present as the first one. Okay, so beginning from the first shell, all the shells have a subshell S. Then let's go to the second shell. In the second shell, you see I have shown P subshell also along with the S. Now, if you look at the P subshell along with the S, you will see that in that case, if I'm looking at the P subshells, so beginning from the second shell, they are all having a P. So beginning from the second shell, they are all having a P. And 7 also is having a P, I have just shown with the dot. Beginning with the third shell, all of them have a D subshells. So the D subshells have been shown. All right. And beginning with the fourth shell, they have F. So 4F is the first F orbitals that we have. So you have 4F, 5F, 6F, and 7F, and it continues. Now, why we don't go beyond 6PDF and 7S and 7P, 7D, and 7F and all this? Because the number of elements that we know at present and their atomic numbers that we have, they are, I mean, these number of orbitals more than suffice the arrangement of these electrons that are there, that is 114, 117, whatever is the number. Those many electrons can be accommodated within up to the seventh shell number. Now, each of this, now you are coming down to the orbitals. Remember, I told you orbitals are the main, is the main concept in the wave mechanical model that we discussed, that the probability of finding the electrons in these orbitals is the maximum. And orbitals are the three-dimensional region around the nucleus where the probability of finding the electrons is maximum. So you see in the number of orbitals, you can see in all these clusters that I have shown, S is always having 1. So S is 1. So in this case, if you see, S is having 1. So we are discussing, there is another green here, there is another here. So each of these clusters have the first one as the light green because the S belongs to all of them. S is present in all of them. Then I have shown a cluster of 3 blue lines. All right, these 3 blue lines, they are indicating the P subshells. So you can see these 3 P subshells that are there, they are present beginning from the second shell. The cluster of 3 P subshells are there in all of them. And they are designated as PX, PY, and PZ, which we will be coming to later in the diagrams. And you can see it is PX, PY, PZ, and along the 3 axes, the X, Y, and Z are taken in accordance with the 3 axes that we use, that is X, Y, and Z axis. All right. So when do these 3 P orbitals show up, when can you actually see them? When you are placing, or when you are trying to take the spectrum in a magnetic field or in an electrical field. In that case, the p orbitals, they split up and orient themselves along the three axes, that is px, py and pz. Very soon we are coming to that also. Then the next, you can see, beginning from the third shell, I have a cluster of 5 red lines. All right. So these cluster of 5 red lines are indicating that they are the d orbitals, and each of these beginning from the third shell are having these clusters. So if you go up to the, let us say if you're talking about the sixth shell, then it is made up of 4 subshells. And you see there is S also there, a cluster of 3 blue lines indicating the p orbitals, then a cluster of 5 lines, 5 red lines indicating that they are d orbitals. And then when you come to the yellow lines, they are indicating the f orbitals. And see, again, these colors have nothing to do with the orbitals. It's just for your easy understanding that I have shown them in different colors. And you can see that beginning from the fourth shell, a cluster of 7 yellow lines are there, and the cluster of these 7 yellow lines are indicating the f orbitals. All right. So each of these f subshell has 7 orbitals, each of the p subshell has 3, and each of the d has 5. So you can very well understand that in all these cases, the arrangement is like this. Now, this is how they are present, mind you. This is how they are present. But actually what happens is that when the orbital arrangement, or when the shell arrangement occurs in around the nucleus, there can be overlapping. Why? Because the 4s will come before 3d. This I have tried to explain yesterday when we were doing the class, that how, because you see the first one is 1 by itself, so it is pretty narrow, and I mean quite one by itself and narrow, and so there's no overlapping problem here. Neither is there any problem with the second one. But when it comes between the third and the fourth one, the 4s overlaps the 3d and comes before that. And that is how the atomic orbitals are arranged. Now, if you look at this, and if let me see if I can just show you how we are going to do that. But in that case, let us see. I'll just show you what happens if I remove all this. You see, in this case here, if this is the nucleus, this is what we discussed. No, the first shell is all by itself, then the second shell, then the third shell. So the third shell has 3. This is what we did. So if I go by the color again, it will take a little time, but let me see if I can do it. This is going to be the S, all right. Then this is going to be the P, all right. This is going to be the P, and this is going to be the D. D is shown by red, so I will make this as red. But when it comes to the fourth shell, then what happens in the case of the fourth shell? The fourth shell is like this, all right. The distance between the third and the fourth may not be much. And then what happens is that when the fourth shell is there, then it has these 4 orbitals, and so the S of the 4, that is S of the 4 comes here. You see, this is 4s. And then what happens is, after that you have the 3d, then you have the p orbital of the 4, that is, you will have the p orbital of the fourth one. And so after that the 4d is there, and then the 4f is there. So you get a 4, this is going to be the 4d, and of course you will have the 4, sorry, the f we are showing with yellow, so let me stick to the colors. So you will see this is 4f. All right. Now when the fifth shell comes in, there will be more overlapping. So when the fifth shell comes in, there is going to be overlapping color. 1 second. Okay, black color if I take, and if I'm drawing the fifth shell, then what is happening? You can see that this is the way we were discussing, that one is 3p, 3d is there, then you have 4s, 4p. This is the Aufbau's way of building up, 4s, 4p, 4d, and 4f. Then you have 5s, 5p. These are the shell levels I'm writing. I like the energy levels I have shown there, and this continues. So if you go by this, 1s has been filled up, so this gets filled up. Then 2s will, so 2s gets filled up. Then you have 2p that gets filled up, so 2p gets filled up. Then after 2p is the 3s. So this is the third shell. So this is the 3s here. So the 3s is getting filled up. All right. Then after 3s, you go back, and this is how you go diagonally. So you don't go to 3d, you go to 3p. So then after 3p, 4s gets filled up. So after 3p, it is the 4s which is getting filled up. You can see this here. After the 4s, when you go back, it is the 3d that fills up. So it is the 3d that is getting filled up. After 3d, you can see there is a 4p. So it is the 4p that is getting filled up. Okay. After 4p, you will see that there is a 5s. All right. So the overlapping is here again. So in this case of the fifth shell, after the 4p, you will have the S of the fifth shell. So you will have an S here. So this is 5s that gets filled up. All right. After 5s is the 4d, which is already there. And after 4d, you can see that there will be a 4p that will be filled up. You can see that. Okay, 4p will be filled up. So a 4p is being filled up. All right, that this is supposed to be in blue color. So 4p is being filled up. After 5s, when you're going back again, the 4d is being filled up, then 5p is being filled up, then 6s is being filled up. So the overlapping, becomes more and more, and it becomes difficult to actually understand from this. So this table is made, and from this table, you can actually write down the sequence of the increasing energies in the energy level. All right. So this is about the filling up of the electrons. And when we do the electronic configuration, we will be coming back to this again. So now let's go to the next part that we have to do. That is, let me clear this out and let's go back to the slide. After this, the next one that we have to discuss about is the shapes of the orbitals. Okay, now we have to do the quantum number also, but let me see. All right, so this is what I did for the shape of the orbitals. Okay. All right, so this is about the shape of the orbitals. So S orbital is spherical in shape. I have already shown, I'm trying to show the S orbital with a light green color, and it is spherical in shape, three-dimensional region. This is kind of a cross-sectional area. The p orbitals are, I have shown them in blue. So you can see that they are in blue color, and you can see that each of the p orbitals, px, py, and pz, actually have shown it the other way. X is here, and y is here, and z is here. You can see when I about px, the two lobes, if I go to the p orbital, okay, the angular momentum will be more, because p orbitals are further away from the nucleus. Their radius is going to be more, and compared to the s orbital of the same shell, and therefore they are kind of flung outwards. Okay, so if you say that the p also should have been a three-dimensional region around the nucleus, p also should have been a structure like this, well, it was probably. But what happened is that because the electrons were thrown out, they were swinging outwards due to the high angular momentum that they were possessing, it actually appeared like two lobes. All right. Now, to show the lobes very prominently, we are showing it like this in the form of figure 8. But actually, if you look at the lobes, that the lobes are actually like this. All right. And there is an area that is created somewhere here where the probability of finding the electrons is 0. And the probability of finding the electrons is maximum in these lobes towards this region here. All right. So this you will see in the books also, in the shaded region, it is shown like this, that the probability of finding the electrons in these areas are like this. Now, are all the p orbitals like this? Yes, but along the three different axes. So you will show the lobes along the three different axes. If this is along the z axis, okay, if this is along the z axis, then you can understand that along the xy plane, if this is x, this is z, and this is the y, then you can understand along the xy plane, the probability of finding the electrons is almost 0, and such areas where probability of finding the electrons is least are called as nodes or nodal planes, okay, depending upon what kind of an area it is. So if you look into the p orbitals, shape of p orbitals, you will find that there are three along the three axes. So I have just shown the axis, like in the case of the first one, I have not shown the y-axis. In the second case also, this I have not shown the y, this I have not shown the y, but here I have shown the y-axis because it is along the y-axis. So you can see that the p orbitals are shown like this. The red circular area that I'm showing is the area where probably the probability of finding the electrons is almost zero. All right, then comes the d orbitals. So how many lines were there in the cluster of d orbitals? 5. So which means that there are 5 orbitals in the d subshell. And if there are 5 orbitals in the d subshell, then you can understand that how they are arranged. Very tricky to understand, but once you understand, take the 3 axis. Okay, we will take the 3 axis. That is, this is we'll consider as z, this we will consider as x, and this we will consider as y. So this is the z axis, this is the x axis, and this is the y axis. Now, in the case of the d orbitals that are 5 in number are written as dxy, dxz, all right, dyz, all right. Then they are written as dx square y square, and they are written as dz square. Okay. In simple things, in the simple way, if you want to understand, xy stands for the plane, that xy plane. So in this diagram, if you see, this is the x. So this one will have an extension on like this side. This is x here also. This is 0. Let this be x dash. And this is the extension of y. So this is y dash. Okay. So it is more on a planar surface. And when we are saying that the lobes are present along the xz, xy we are considering, then you can understand that D stands for double dumbbell. All right, it is double dumbbell in shape, and it is along this axis. It is not on the axis, but it is between the x and y axis. So you can see and understand like this. Okay, this is between the x and the y. Okay, that is, they are not along the axis, but they are between the x and y plane. So suppose if this is the x and y plane I'm talking about, then the lobes are like this. All right, this is the x and y plane. This is the z that is going across. So it is along a plane, along x and y plane. All right. Similarly, if you are talking about x and z, then you can understand the plane to be like this. Wait, I'll show you. The plane, you can take it to be, in the case of xz, if I'm taking, then you can understand that in the case of xz, that means this and this, if I'm taking, the plane is like this, standing like this, let us say. Okay, so you have the x and you have the z. So this is like this, arranged like this, okay, along the xz plane. And if I'm talking about the YZ plane, that means it is along the YZ. So actually, if you can visualize 3 surfaces which are at 90 degrees to each other, and along these planes, okay, along these planes, the lobes are directed X, Y, YZ and Z, X, Y, YZ and ZX. They are just telling us along which plane they could be. Okay, they are double dumbbell in shape and they are oriented between the axis and along that plane. Okay, and if I come to dx square y square, then in this case, it is very clear, you can understand that it is along the axis. Okay, in this case, it will be along the axis. So if I'm doing the x square y square, let me just show how to do that. You can understand in this case that if I'm doing this, then this is one. All right, this is the other axis and this is the other axis. So if I'm doing x and y square, so this is the x, this is the y, and this is the z. The dx square y square is along the axis. All right, so it will, this is extending this side, this is extending this side. So you have it along the axis. So this is along the axis. The others were in between the axis. Here they are along the axis. And this is what is dx square y square. And if I talk about the dz square, then you can understand that if this is the z which is extending downwards like this, then the lobes are like this, one this side and one this side. Okay, and there is a dense region, a circular region, where also the probability of finding the electrons is there. All right, now this is a region of electrons there. Now this is dz square. Now, if you have understood the shapes, s orbitals are spherical in shape, p orbitals are dumbbell in shape, d orbitals are double dumbbell in shape, and the f orbitals are supposed to be fused in shape. All right, and they are 7, each containing 2 electrons, making a total of intake of 14 electrons. Okay, so this is what it means here. Now, in this case of the d orbitals that I have tried to explain, the d orbitals, each of these orbitals is capable of taking 2 electrons. So a total of 10 electrons can be accommodated in a particular d orbital set. Okay, and that is why the transition elements are 10 in number. Remember, in the periodic table, the transition series that starts, you have 10 elements arranged in increasing order of their arithmetic number, that is from scandium 21 to zinc 30. That is how you go. So there are 10 elements arranged. So there the d orbitals are being filled up. So of course we will be going into the details again, but this is what I was trying to tell you. Now, if you have understood this, let me go back to the first slide that I was showing you, where I will show you how many electrons are there in each of this. All right. So S is made up of only 1 orbital, so it has only 2 electrons. P has 3 orbitals, so it is having a total of 6 electrons. So you have 6 electrons there. So in the second shell, a total number of 8 electrons can be accommodated. When you come to the third shell, again, S will take 2 electrons. P will take 6 electrons. Each P is taking 2, so it makes it 6. And each D is taking 2 electrons, so it can take a maximum of 10 electrons. So you can see the third shell has a maximum capacity of 18 electrons. Similarly, when you go to the fourth shell, it has a maximum capacity of taking 32 electrons. Again, why? Because you see 2 of the S subshell, 6 of the P subshell, 10 of the D subshell, and 14 of the F subshell. So that makes it a total of 32. And so actually after the F, there is a G subshell. Okay, but since we don't need to go up to that G subshell, that is why it is not introduced here. But otherwise, you know, the electron number would increase more. But it is within this area only, or within these numbers only, that we are able to accommodate all the electrons of the known elements. So that is why that is actually not used there, okay, in your atomic structure. So this is what I was trying to tell you about the atomic orbitals. Now let us go to another slide where we are going to discuss, this was atomic orbitals, this was the shapes of the atomic orbitals, all right. And in this case, the d orbitals I have already explained. Here also I have taken that, and this is what we have done for dx square y square. This is along the axis. You can see this is along the axis, and here you have this area here. This should not have been there, but anyway, this should have been applicable for this nodal area should have been applicable for the p orbital. So this is the region where it is electron density is there. So this is one aspect. And then after this you have the next one, where we are going to discuss the quantum numbers. Okay. Now, from where did these quantum numbers come? First question is, what are quantum numbers, and why do we study quantum numbers? See, an atom has so many electrons. If you talk about heavy atoms, they are containing so many electrons. If they are containing so many electrons, it's very difficult to, actually go and look for an electron all the time in an atomic makeup or in a buildup. So what happens, based on the Schrodinger's wave equation, all right, there were certain values that were calculated. All right, those were called as the eigenvalues that were calculated. And Based on that, the three numbers specified the energy, the size, the shape, the orientation of the atomic orbitals that were present there. And based on that, the four quantum numbers were designed. All right. Now, what are these quantum numbers? They are designated as n, small n. All right. You have a small n, small l, small m, and a small s. This looks like a capital S, but actually it should have been a small s. All right. N stands for the shell number. So these n can have a value of anything from, n will have whole number values from 1, 2, 3, and so on. What does n specify? N specifies the principal quantum number, or also called as the main quantum number, where it is telling you the shell number. Okay. The rest of the quantum numbers will actually depend on the value of n to exactly locate an electron. Okay. Then next is the L subshell. If you look at the L subshell, you will find that the value of the L subshells is from 0 to n minus 1. Check this out. It is from 0 to n minus 1. Okay. So if the value of n is 1, value of L will be equal to 0. If the value of n is equal to 2, then the value of L will be equal to 0 and 1. Okay. So the value of L will actually depend on the value of the shell number. Okay. Where is the electron residing? Which electron are you talking about? Suppose if I'm, let us just let me give you a simple example here. Suppose you have, two students we are looking for, or let me begin with the first student whose roll number is 18. All right. Now you see 18 roll number is there in all the classes. So what do I have to specify first? First, I will have to specify he is in which class, whether he is in standard 1, whether he is in standard 11, whether he is in standard 8, which class. All right. So that is my principal quantum number. That is the main shell that I'm talking about. All right. So suppose you have been told that, okay, the child is studying in his, let us say, standard 11. All right. So if he is studying in standard 11, then in which section? Because all the three sections have roll number 18. So now you are looking for the subshell. He is in which subshell, or he is in which section? So you say, okay, he is in 11B. All right. So 11B, two things I came to know. The third thing now is that I'm talking about is exactly the child whom we are looking for. That is roll number 18 of 11B, that is section 11, class 11 and section B. So you see, all these things became necessary to actually identify one person, all right, with roll number 18. Similarly, you can have electrons in all the atomic shells. But which shell number you are talking about, which electron you are talking about, to specify that, the quantum numbers are used. So N tells you the principal quantum number. L will tell you the subshell as to in which subshell are you talking about. Okay. M tells you the orbitals, the orientation in space. So if I give you the value of N, you can tell me exactly, suppose I say, the electron is actually in N equal to 3. It will automatically give you an idea that, okay, the electron is probably from the nucleus, it is residing at this distance. Okay, so this is one idea. If L is given, then you can understand. Let us say the shell number is 3 and the L number is 0. So that means it is in the S subshell. L equal to 0 means it is in the S subshell. L equal to 1, that means it is in the P subshell. L equal to 2, that means it is in the D subshell. L equal to 3, that means it is in the F subshell. So what we are trying to say is that L will tell us in which subsection it is. All right, in which subshell it is. Then you come to the value of M. All right. Now the M will exactly tell you which child you are talking about. That is, value of M will depend on the value of L. So once N is given, then you need to know L. Once you know the L, then you will start talking about the value of M. So when you are talking about the value of M, you are writing the permissible values of M will be from minus L to plus L through 0. Okay. and S is the spin quantum number. So N is the principal quantum number, L is the azimuthal quantum number, M is the actually tells you the orbitals, which is called as the magnetic quantum number, and S stands for the spin quantum number. For S, there are only two values. Either it will be plus half or it will be minus half. That's all. No further more values are there. Let's go to the next slide. It is more illustrative there. See, here I have tried to do this. All right, you see in this case for L equal to 0, it is the S subshell. When L is equal to 1, it is the P subshell. It can be Px, Py, Pz. If L is equal to 2, then it is the D subshell. It will have 5 values. This looks like an S, but actually it is 5 values. Okay, this is 5 values. And if you look at 3, this is equal to F subshells, which means it is having 7 values. So what are the values of these values of M based on L that I will try to explain just now? You see in this slide, you can see that if the value of L is equal to 0, the value of M necessarily will equal to 0. If the value of L is 0, M को 0 ही होना है. It cannot be 1 or 2 or anything else. All right, because the value of M is dependent on the value of 0. Now, L, when it is equal to 1, M can have values equal to from minus L to plus L. So, minus 1, 0, plus 1. So, this can be for Px, this is for Py, and this is for Pz. Now, these are just notations. In some books, you will find it is given from plus 1, 0 to minus 1. So, that also is okay. But you know that for Py, it will be 0. X and Y may get interchanged, no problem. Okay. When L is equal to 2, M will have 5 values. Because you see, this stands for d orbitals. This stands for p orbitals. This stands for d orbitals. How many d orbitals we have? 5 in number. So for the 5, you have minus 2, minus 1, 0, plus 1, plus 2. So it goes as dxy, dyz, dzx, and then dx square, y square, dz square. So that is how it will go. And similarly, if L is equal to 3, you will have 7 values. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There are 7 values of F. So the value of M will always depend on the value of L. All right. And S will always have 2 values. That is, it is going to be plus half or minus half. Now, if you actually want to understand one thing here that I will try to tell you, just 1 second, let me see if I have another slide. Okay, I don't have. Okay, so let me explain on the whiteboard. There are certain rules for writing the quantum numbers. Okay, what are those rules for writing the quantum numbers that I will explain? See, which set of quantum numbers is correct? If I'm asking you this, you tell me. Okay, n is equal to 2. Okay, now the permissible values for, before I give you the question, permissible value for L, when I'm talking about the second shell, L can have values which are equal to either 0 or 1. Numerically, the number of values of L will equal to shell number. So if the shell number is equal to 3, L can have values as 0, 1, and 2. That means it has 3 values, permissible values. मतलब कि वो वैल्यू हो सकता है, परमिसिबल मतलब हो सकता है, बट एक इलेक्ट्रॉन के लिए यू कैन नॉट हैव ऑल दीज वैल्यूज. फॉर वन इलेक्ट्रॉन इट विल बी वन वैल्यू, बट permissible values are these. Just like a student will belong to only a particular class, that roll number 18 will belong to a particular class. But when I say that I'm talking about a child in standard 11, then I'm talking about 11A, 11B, 11C. ये तीनों में से किसी में भी वो हो सकता है. That child can be present in any of these 3 sections. But in which section is he? That will be given by L. Exactly in which subshell. So L, 0, 1 are the permissible values. That means you are allowing that, okay, L can have a value of 0, L can have a value of 1. Now, if I am talking about the value of M, then for M, it will depend on whether the L is 0 or whether the L is 1. If L is equal to 0, M has to equal to 0. Okay. There is no choice. But if L is equal to 1, then M has permissible values of +1 or -1, whatever you want to take it as, 0 and -1, meaning that there are 3 values, permissible values. But again, the electron will belong to any one. All right. And S will always have a value of +½ or -½. Now, what is this +½ and -½ I'm talking about? The S stands for the spin quantum number. It tells you about the spin. Usually by notation, the first electron that enters an orbital. Okay, suppose I'm talking about the S orbital. The first electron that enters the S orbital is given a +½ for the spin quantum number. And the next electron, when it enters that orbital, will be given a value of -½ Okay, so S is defining only which electron is that. Is it the first one to add up in that orbital, or is it the second one to add up in that orbital? Followed. So this is what I'm talking about. Now let us see, as I was telling you, that if I give you a set of electrons, a set of quantum numbers, will you be able to identify? So which one is the correct set of quantum numbers? I'll take another 2-3 minutes, children. Okay. Since this is the other one I'm doing, it is okay. See, N, if I'm going by, N is equal to 2, L is equal to 0, and I write M is equal to 1. This is not the correct way of writing. S will always be correct, whether +½ or -½, no worries. Okay, but you see, this is not correct. If L is equal to 0, M cannot equal to 1. But if I write N is equal to 2, I write L is equal to 1, then for M, I have to specify as +½ or -½. Any one value I will write, and S is equal to +½ or -½, that will depend. All right. To explain what will be written +½ or -½, for that we will have to know the electronic configuration. So only when we do the electronic configuration, the quantum numbers will become more and more clear. All right. Similarly, if I'm writing N is equal to, let us say 1, all right, and I am writing L is equal to 1 and M is equal to +1. Is this correct? Is this set of quantum numbers correct? Are these set of quantum numbers correct? No. Why will they not be correct? Because when N is equal to 1, L has to equal to 0. When L equals to 1, L cannot have, the permissible value for L is only 0. So it has to be only 0. And when N is equal to 1, L has to equal to 0, M has to equal to 0, and S can equal to +½ Okay, +½ or -½ that depends upon which electron is entering that orbital. So this is what I was wanting to tell you and explain today about the quantum numbers. I tried doing with the diagrams and all, thinking that it would be more clear. But unless we do the electronic configuration, children, it will not be as clear as of now. But what you have understood, I just want 1 or 2 of you to tell me if you have understood that. You can unmute and reply and tell me anything that you want me to explain again. Anyone? Is everything okay that I explained?
Yes,
Then I will
miss.
end the class here, children.
Yes, miss.
Huh?
Yes,
Understood? Just give a reading in the book also. And tomorrow again, if you have any doubts, I can, very soon we will be taking some, I think next week I might take some extra class for you all also. Okay.